I'm gonna show you how to install the perfect fire alarm system. But before we get into all that, behind me is a training center I built. I wanna explain to you what I have on a board behind me before we get straight into the video. So check this out. Over here, up top, I have our camera system that we use. We use the Luma system, or we use the Clear One products for our home security or for our government products. These cameras are NDAA compliant, so that means it just doesn't have the chipset, so that way the spies can look into your camera system. These are all manufactured in the US and is approved to use in government contracts. Cameras range anywhere from 2 megapixel all the way up to 8 megapixel cameras. We have 4 camera system, 8 camera system, 16 camera system, 32 camera system, Wi-Fi cameras that can span up to 100 cameras to 1,000 cameras, you name it. Home security systems as well, but I don't want to get into all that. Let me just get back to the board. Here we have an access control system. So if you want to learn access control, I'm also going to be showing you how to configure the access control system we use. But for today, in this specific video, we're going to be learning how to install the perfect fire alarm system. I'm going to explain this whole entire setup, what these lights are, what these modules are. I'm missing a few modules. I need a CO detector for here and also need a heat detector for here, but I feel I have enough devices here to actually go through and add everything, show you how to program it, and we go through the test and see what these lights are supposed to do. So the first thing we want to do is we want to understand the main control panel, the wiring, and what everything is doing and how everything is actually connected. All right, so let's get into that. So here's our fire alarm control panel. On the inside of the fire alarm control panel, we have our front display. On the front display, we have our reset button, we have our acknowledge panel silence, we have our signal silence, and we have our drill button. We have our directional keypad. We have our LEDs to let us know if there's any trouble, alarm, supervisory, or any devices that are disabled. We have a remote disconnect. This will disconnect the central station. We have fault monitoring LEDs and the AC power. Over on the right side, we have the NAC circuit. This right here is a VS1. So a VS1 can handle up to 64 devices and has 2 NAC circuits. There's one NAC circuit that's being used, it's ran out, going all the way around. This one horn strobe, and then this one strobe. So whenever a smoke detector will go into alarm, the outputs will activate. Inside here, this is our loop card. This is where this wire will run out, connect to the smoke detector. This will be a heat detector that I need to get installed. This is a CO detector, but we can test it at the module. These are simulating a Waterflow, a Tamper switch. These are my control relays. This is simulating fan. So this would be my fan running. And when the fan shut off, this LED should turn on and this should shut off. This right here is my elevator recall. So if there's any smoke detector, the elevator lobby smoke detector, which would be simulating this smoke detector, this relay should go off and turn this LED off to simulate that the elevator recall. Same as door release. So how this is working over here on this side, we have 24 volts, and I'm using 24 volts in conjunction with this onboard relay. On the onboard relay, we have a relay contact for trouble, supervisory, and alarm. So what I'm doing is I'm using the alarm contacts in series with the 24 volts running down to this LED for door control. So anytime there's a pull station that go into alarm, the doors should release in the building, so that way you can get out of the building. So essentially, that's pretty much how this is all wired up. And I can show you how I wired up the relay to the LEDs in series, how we using the 24 volts with the relay. I'll show you that. I'll break that down in a second. This right here is the download cable. This download cable will run to your laptop and plug into the USB port. Actually, it's a COM port. So if you have the old style computer, which most of us don't, you can take this COM port and convert it over to a USB, so that way you can communicate with the fire alarm control panel. The most important thing, in order for you to upload or download, you got to be logged in level 2. But we'll see how to do all that coming up next. So now that we're familiar with how fire alarm circuits is actually going out into the field and what devices they're going to, later on in the video, I actually break down the wiring for at least the relay and the smoke base, so that way you can see how it's wired in and out the path of the data flow. So right now, what we're going to do is add these devices into the system, build up a new panel, add the devices to the system, give them labels, program them in, download, Then we're gonna do some testing to see if the outputs is working the way we programmed them to work. All right, so I have this laptop set up, also have it on the screen. You probably could also see it down below, follow along, right? So check this out. So the first thing we wanna do is we wanna start a new project. We're gonna call this training. We're gonna open that project up. Like I said, this is a VS1 panel, so when you add a new project, you have to let the system know what type of panel you're installing, a VS1, a VS4, whatever type of panel you're installing, you have to let the system know. So what we're doing is we're gonna go into configure, we're gonna add panel, we're gonna add a VS1. So now we have this identical display that comes up. When I first power up a system and I'm commissioning the system, I'm the technician on the job and I'm commissioning the system and I got the drawings and everything. The electrician gave me the drawings, all the serial numbers is marked out where the locations of the devices are. The first thing I like to do is make sure I connect the loop and then I upload the loop. So that way I can have the devices within the software. It's already in the CPU is already building a map of all of the devices. So all I have to do now is extract that information from the system and then add it to the program and then put my labels and descriptions and dump it back into the panel. So let me show you what that means. I'll go over to devices. Actually, I'll go to communications. So the first thing you have to do is log into level 2 inside the fire alarm control panel. Once you log into level 2, I usually just go into any menu that prompts me to log in, so that way I can just put the password in and then I'll back out, go into the program menu, and then what you have to do is you have to turn on an RS-232 card in which this cable is plugged into. So what I'm gonna do now is input the password and turn on that port so that way the laptop can communicate with the panel. So now just turned on RS-232, and I can give you the steps in the description below so that way you can have the steps in the PDF step by step. So once we turn it on, we want to go inside of the communications. We want to make sure that our COM port is correct. I know that this is COM port 3 because I do all the downloads. So once we log in level 2, we have the COM port correct. We hit connect, and now the system had just connected. So the first thing I like to do is read from the panel. Give me whatever this panel has already inside of it. This is not pulling up the loop. This is pulling up the descriptions, correlations, user keys, central station information, things like that. If any, it could be just a blank panel. But the first thing I do is I overwrite it, say yes, and I close it. Then I'll go over to the device tab, click on mapping, and I want to retrieve the data. A lot of times it may not upload so quickly because the system or the loop card is still trying to build out the map. So you will have to wait for the system to actually finish building out the map, letting it know what devices next to each other. So once it finished doing that, then you're able to upload the system, get all those blue icons, and add them into the software so you can put your labels and then download them back into the system. So now once we got our devices, we're gonna close that. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna accept all. Because what this is gonna do is add these devices automatically. So when we go into the inside device configuration, we see what these devices are. So what we have to do is we have serial numbers for the devices. We just have to check what serial number is doing what. So this first relay has a serial number 8881, which is this one down here. So this one right here is elevator recall. We can keep it non-silenceable. What this means is once we reset the system, it will go back to normal automatically. So the next relay, I already know what this relay is. This is gonna be for fan shutdown, because the third relay, which is door release, is coming off the main control panel, the onboard relay. So the CT1, the first CT1 is 888227, which is this guy here, and this is gonna be my Waterflow. And this right, 7602, all right, 22, let's go to the next one, 22881. I know this is a CO detector. I'm gonna have to probably open up one of those just to see what it is. Process of elimination is what I'm gonna do. So we're gonna make this supervisory latching. We're gonna call this first floor CO. Then we have another CT1 here, 9607. Okay, so 7602, this right here is the pull station. So this is gonna be first floor. And if you're wondering how I know that, these stickers are on the fire alarm control devices. You will take these stickers off and put it on the location of, or like the plans, you have the drawings. And if you're in the electrical room in the basement, there's a smoke detector in there, you will take this label from the smoke detector and put it on a smoke symbol inside of that electrical room. So that way, when I'm coming and programming it and I upload the loop, I'll look at the last 4 numbers, I'll find that last 4 numbers, look at the map, and then, okay, that's the electric room smoke detector. This is why this is very important. So first floor pull station. So now I know this one is my Tamper switch. So this would be a supervisory non-latching because we want this to reset once it's clear. So we're gonna call this basement sprinkler room Tamper. Let's change this to basement sprinkler room water flow. And then we're gonna call this first floor elevator lobby, first floor elevator lobby smoke detector, right? That should be all of our devices. I'm missing a heat detector and a CO detector, but we have our relays, we have our input modules. This is also an input module, and we have our smoke detector. So now, being that we have all of our labels, we now have to define the correlations. And the correlations is how we're gonna configure the inputs and the outputs. So the first correlation is going to be general alarm. And I always like to name my correlations. So general alarm will be any alarm that go off, turn on the outputs generically. And then we're going to put custom controls for everything else. So we want the water flow, we want the pull station, we don't want the CO detector, we don't want the Tamper switch, and we want the elevator lobby smoke detector. Those are the only devices that will go into alarm. And what I want to do is turn on NAC 1 and then NAC 2 so that way we can activate the outputs. That's the first correlation. The second correlation we're going to do is fan shutdown. So what shuts the fan down? We got the elevator lobby smoke and we got the water flow detector. Those are only two things that's going to shut the fans down. So now what we're going to need is we're going to need the relay, fan shutdown relay, and we add it over to that group. The next correlation we want to do is elevator recall. And what we can do here is just add the elevator recall relay because these two devices is going to shut down the fans and recall the elevators. The pull station is just going to release the doors. So whenever the pull station go off or any of the devices go off for that fact, this door release will go into alarm. So now we have to configure the NAC outputs. And what we want to do is when we hit alarm silence or signal silence, we want the horns to shut off, but we want the strobes to keep flashing. So in order for that to happen, we will have to pick the Genesis silenceable. And I'm gonna read what that means. It says, click this NAC type if you want to output a synchronized signal that only turns horns off when you press signal silence. And yes, that's what I want. I just want you to turn the horns off so that way we can continue the strobes flashing. So we will have to do that for both NAC 1 and 2. And we can give it a label, first floor NAC circuit. So NAC 2, we're gonna pick Genesis silenceable, and we can just call that spare. We're not using it, and it's in trouble because I don't have a 15K resistor. So now we go back to communications. We're still connected. So once we configure everything, we can then now write to the panel. So now once we write to the panel is gonna download all the information that you just configured in the programmer, put it inside the fire alarm control panel, and then once it finished, it's gonna reboot, and then it's gonna establish that new connection or that new configuration that you did, and then it's gonna go through a whole mapping process again. So once it's finished doing the mapping, then at that time you wanna upload the loop again, so that way you have the actual configuration of what's in your laptop and also what's in the fire alarm control panel. They both match. If you have 5 devices in your software program, you should have 5 devices in the fire alarm control panel as well, so everything matches. So what we have is a few troubles, right? We have the dialer configuration trouble because we don't have a dialer card. We're missing batteries. We don't have the batteries hooked up. We need 2 12-volt batteries wired in series to give us 24 volts. When you have a dialer trouble, it'll usually give you 3 or 4 troubles. You get the dialer 1, line 2, and then a no communication trouble. Then we have the program mode because I'm connected to the system via the laptop. And then the last trouble is the spare of the 15K resistor I'm missing for the NAC circuit. So essentially, the system is clear. So now that I disconnected, I only have 5 troubles now. We have a water flow and we have a Tamper switch. And we have a manual pull station and we have a smoke detector. So what will happen if we set up the smoke detector? Strobe still flashing. Go clean the smoke detector out, give it a reset, see what happens. And you see the LEDs, door release, elevator recall, fan shutdown. So this means the fans turn on. If you're in a high-rise building, there's multiple fans that will have to start up. All of the fans will not start up at the same time in a high-rise building, you would want to put delays on each one of those fan startups. You will also want to put a startup sequence on the fire alarm control panel. So when you hit reset, those relays are ignored, they're still active, and you will have to hit a secondary button to restart the fans, and then that will start the clock so that way all the fans can stagger and start on. You will blow a lot of power. All these molders pull a lot of current, so that can cause some problems inside your building. So that's the smoke detector. So now we have a CO detector. I don't have nothing to short out, so I'm gonna use this screwdriver. So here we get a supervisory. And this supervisory is latched. What that means is you gotta go check this out, make sure that there's no CO in that area, and then you could come back once it's clear to hit the reset button in order for that to clear, for that type of point to clear. So any latching point will stay on the system until you hit system reset. Once it reset, it'll go back to 5 troubles. The next one is the Waterflow, but I don't have a Waterflow. I don't have a CT1 module for the Waterflow switch, so we're gonna go down to the next one, which is the Tamper switch. And this is a non-latching Tamper switch, so once the Tamper actually clears, the system will restore itself. Let me show you. The basement sprinkler room Tamper, but once it's clear, activation is over. The next thing we're going to test is the pull station. Now, the pull station is the device that will shut the doors down. It won't release the fans, nor it will drop the elevators. The only way it would do those function if the AHJ or fire department say so. But the only function of pull station is to shut the doors down. So you can see here, as you see here, our fan status is normal. Our fan is running. That's what this means. Our fan is running, and this means our fan will be shut down if any device go off. As you've seen when I did the smoke detector and water flow, this LED switched to up here. This here is the elevator recall, and this is the door release. So what we have here is a dual action pull station, which means it takes 2 steps to activate this type of pull station. So I have to lift this handle up, and then I have to pull it down. We got the horns and strobes active. We got the strobes now silenced, and now we have also the panel silenced. So what we want to look at is the LEDs. We see the fan status. The fan is still running. It didn't shut down, but the doors had released. So if there's a manual activation, doors will release. If there's an automatic activation, you will have more output functions, if that makes sense. So let's reset this system. We got to reset the pull station. Up top, there's a little screw that you turn. Reset the pull. Close it. Reset the system. So that is how you install the perfect fire alarm system. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Anthony Richardson. I'm the president of Securities Corp. We've been installing fire alarm systems for the past 10 years here in New York City. We are licensed by the state of New York to install and maintain fire alarm and security systems. So I just want to share my knowledge to you to help you become a better technician so that way you can make more money in your life. Peace.